Let's start with the right side. Sir, come forward. Identify yourself and where you live and all that sort of thing. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Whoa. Okay, sorry. Way too used to karaoke microphones. My name's Lee Olson. I'm general manager at Waldo's Restaurant. I'm also on the board of directors for the Driftwood Vacation Villas, which is about 1,600 owners. And you all know why I'm here tonight. Before we get started, I want to give you a little brief, quick history on myself and the city of which I've been here. When I moved to Vero Beach 25 years ago, we had the Dodgers in spring training. Life was good for about a 6-week period. The day after Easter, you could take a gun out and shoot it and not hit a soul. Throughout the course of the years, it got better. Then we got the bad news 5 years ago. Dodgers are leaving. Everybody in town thought, okay, what's going to happen next? Well, we got the answer. The Chamber of Commerce and the Tourism Department went to great lengths and hours of sweat to build our town back up and put us back on the map. Part of this being promoting heavily beachside and also making us a destination location for weddings, which happens on the beachside. So what was the result? Well, in yesterday's meeting, Mrs. Conley so nicely brought to everybody's attention with pictures on what it looks like on a Saturday afternoon in July. It's awesome. Our business doesn't end until August. So, now on to the parking. Being 2 hours enforced. I feel this is going against all that the Chamber has worked so hard to fix. People coming to the beachside is what they have fought hard for. On September 25th, on the Vero Beach Police Facebook page, announced that the 2-hour parking was going to be enforced on Saturdays, effective October. The request being by the Oceanside Business Association. Then the very same day, it was canceled at the request of the Oceanside Business Association. I went on vacation for a week. I come back. It's now a topic again. I'm not a political guy, never ran for an office, but I know enough to know in your world that's called flip-flopping. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it's called. Okay, the one thing, my biggest issue, is I'm not sure who the Oceanside Business Association is speaking for. Oceanside Business Association, and you can look this up, is a non-for-profit organization. Now, what does a non-for-profit organization have a right to dictate to the city of Vero Beach what the people want? They are not elected officials, like yourselves, who are supposed to be the voice of the people. The city is made up of many zip codes. 32963 is not the only one. The local people have made their voices heard when the subject of meter parking came up. And if you look at social media, they're not happy about this decision. Sorry, a little nervous. We all know the parking issue exists. It's what we call growing pains. But allowing a non-for-profit organization that doesn't speak but for a chosen few, whose better time would be spent going to the other businesses on the Oceanside area, who are holding captive more than 300 parking spaces on the weekend when their businesses are closed. Now, this works, it's absurd to me. I have made several phone calls to several different businesses to lease their parking lot. So we could possibly set up a valet system or something like that. I don't even get phone calls back. Now, this works very well for the downtown area that is in a huge explosion of new businesses. Now think about it. Would the Kilted Mermaid, Fish Shack, and Dixie Lounge be prospering as well as they are without the cooperation of other businesses that in the evening are closed? Probably not. More than likely, the downtown businesses are now working as a team for the better good, and is now giving Beachside a run for their money on where the destination is. So I want to give you, because watching yesterday, you like facts. So here's some facts pertaining to the Oceanside Business Association. Fact number 1, there are 22 parking spaces untimed, not in that 2-hour period, in front of Hummelston Park on Ocean Drive, and 2 handicap spaces. In the west parking lot for Hummelston Park, there are 46 spaces and 2 handicap. This is also the location on Saturdays for the farmers market. Okay? They're complaining that there's not enough parking and people are using the parking spaces to go to the beach. Well, they are occupying close to 70 parking spaces. I was at the OBA meeting, Jim was there, and the subject of moving it to Riverside Park, where it could expand, become bigger and better, was absolutely turned down. Not even a topic of conversation. Now, these are the same people who want to regulate the lady who comes up from West Palm Beach or the elderly couple who come down from Melbourne on a Saturday to 2 hours. Now, how many of you have gone out on Saturday over Beachside, whether you're at my place or Mulligan's, walk around, look at the shops? Would a 2-hour limit work? I don't think so. I think Saturday and Sunday should be left. Now, here's number 2 fact of the OBA. There are over 250 licensed businesses in the 32963 area zip code. 84 Oceanside business members. That's less than 1/3 of the population. How do they have the right to dictate to you guys what is in the best interest for us? Number 3, monthly concert series. And trust me, I love the concert series. I love the marketplace. But they're the ones who are throwing the stone about the parking. They block the same location that doesn't have hourly parking restrictions around 3:30 on a Saturday once a month. So now they have occupied that space from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. with an hour in between and then blocking it. Are they looking for a solution? Because they're the biggest problem. So in closing, I will quote to you from my boss, Leon Volkert, who owns many hotels throughout the country. And he said to me as we were discussing this issue, because it will affect me and the other businesses, other restaurants, shops, whatever, economically, would it not be a bigger issue if those parking spaces were empty? Thank you all for my time.
Thank you for your comment. Right-hand side, who would like to come forward?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
would you like me to address that? Because it is a
would,
topic,
sure.
and not only the Mulligan's issue, but there was a vote at the OBA board to ask for enforcement of the 2-hour parking, and it was the second time that has been asked. Just to let you know, I do have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with both the Chamber and the OBA and a couple of the businesses, not all 85 or 200, and we will be broaching this topic in this conversation. But I felt responsible to respond to the businesses that sort of speak in a voice. I try to work with the Chamber and try to work with the OBA. Obviously, this is a very, very sensitive issue, as dictated and shown to you all yesterday over the Mulligan's discussion, that the 2-hour issue or the parking on the weekends. The city owns about 760 spaces. And what Lee said is very true, that if you go down there on a Saturday or Sunday, you will see parking spaces, i.e. there's a parking garage that's 3 floors high that most of the businesses are closed that use that. And you also have, especially up on the north end, several parking lots that are businesses that are offices that usually don't occupy those spaces. And we're going to try to pursue to see if there is a way of making that take place where we can open up some of those spaces. We've also talked, as a matter of fact, the OBA had the GO line in to make a presentation about doing a shuttle like parking in Riverside, not to take up where we have under the oaks and that kind of stuff, but out in the grass area, there is space that could be utilized and try to do it. That costs money, and I've made it very clear that the city and its budget cannot pay for that. There would have to be some type of imposition of how we generate those revenues from the users of the service. So it's an ongoing conversation. We have set November the 8th as a date to start the 2-hour enforcement. The chief and I have talked about it and how we would do that. And what I would like to do is keep that date, but if something changes, if we, for example, tomorrow with the meeting of the minds, maybe we can come out. One of the problems that we have, and Lee hit on it, and it's like in many organizations, if we all belong to civic groups, then you will find that the minority oftentimes persuades the majority because they're the ones that sort of speak. And we need to make it a little more inclusive and get more people involved. Unfortunately, Lee told me that Driftwood is dropping out of the OBA, and they were one of the founding members. I'm hoping that somewhere along the line we will change that, because those are the type of folks I need to hear from in order to help execute policy in the Main Street. But just to let you know, we are addressing the concerns. We are trying to work on that, and that November the 8th date is a date set right now to try to work.
Honestly, I'd like to see that date more held at bay until we can hear from everybody, because we're opening season, people are going to be showing up and getting tickets, and I just don't want to see season open with parking tickets littering the beach.
And I have no problem. I mean, I will tell you from a personal standpoint, my concern is the folks that are going to get the tickets are those folks who bring their families over for weekend at the beach. And it is unfortunate. They will take up parking spaces. We blame it on employees. I will tell you, the letters and the calls that the chief and I get when we issue parking tickets, I don't ever recall getting an employee calling me and saying, I deserve a place to park. The last letter we got, which was September the 17th, I spent over $600 on Ocean Drive to come back and get a $20 ticket on my car. That's not a very good greeting from the city of Vero Beach, but it is going to be all-inclusive. But, Ms. Grace, the problem that we have is you're never going to get everybody. That's one of the problems we have. We're going to have to use our best judgment in how to address the issue. Some of the concern is premised on the fact that we've had such a good summer that the season is even going to be even more impactful in the area. So we haven't experienced that yet. That's an assumption, and it may be something we have to work with.
I think you need to go ahead, Jim, and start when you're scheduled.
Well, there's a city council meeting just before that on the 4th.
Yeah.
And I think there should be some discussion there. There was a woman at the special call meeting.
Kathy.
At the very last lady. I don't know. I can't remember her name. And she gave a very persuasive comment that the reason people go to the beach in the final analysis is the beach. In other words, the stores benefit from the beach being there. And so I feel somewhat the same or much the same as Ms. Graves, and I would say that we should talk about it. We have that opportunity, but I
By the way, that
feel.
lady was a shop owner.
And she was a shop owner, and she eloquently said that her shop wouldn't do as well if people didn't come to the beach, for what it's worth.
Well, two comments. Number one, the most important, and Jim, you and I have been in many of these parking meetings together.
Yes.
I have asked the same question of the retail owners, that how many of you have lost money due to this situation? And I will tell you, I got an affirmative no answer. Nobody answered. I know for myself, the growth of my business in the last 5 years has been roughly 22 to 25%. That's important. And part of that, I hate to use me as an example, but I'm going to. If you come to Waldo's during season, and I have a 45-minute to an hour wait, which if I don't, then my business is failing. So now you have a 45-minute to an hour wait, you finally get seated, and now you have an hour at which to enjoy what I think our business is known for as the best view in Vero. Now, if everybody says, then we may as well change our slogan, take the beach out. Just call it Vero. But that's not what we're about. We're Vero Beach. So I feel very strongly about this, not only on the economical impact that it's going to have on my business, the Lemon Tree, Mulligan's, Holiday Inn, Cravings. It's going to be an economical disaster. Okay, I'm in the business, which most of you own a business. You are expected to show a growth on an annual basis. I pride myself on the fact that I always say to people, Waldo's has inland prices. I will have to raise prices. I will have to lay off employees. Well, Mr. Fletcher, it's the truth. Why are you sitting back it's the truth. I mean, look at the impact that it will have. Tourism, okay? We build it up, and 2-hour regulation is going to tear it right back down again. Granted, not everybody's going to get a ticket, but like Jim said, spent $600 on the beach and got a $20 ticket for visiting Vero Beach. Thank you for coming. I feel strongly about this. I think it's a bad idea. I'm not a voter inside city limits. I live in the county, so I have no agenda with your political careers. What I do have an agenda about is my business career, and it's important to me, and I just hope you take it into consideration. Tomorrow starts the first meeting for the parking committee. Give us a chance to come up with some solutions before we implement the 2-hour parking restriction. That's all. Give us a little time. The people who voted, Jim, from the Oceanside Business Association was not the business people. It was a board meeting decision. The board voted. So, of course, the board consists of some people who are retails who, like you saw yesterday, they're feeling that, I'll be honest with you. I had Lori Conley in the middle of my Vero Beach Lifeguard Association benefit accost me in my building, in my restaurant, in public, telling me that I am personally killing the beachside and that I should be grateful that her parents' business was closed that day. I mean, that's the silliness that unfortunately he's getting caught in the middle of, and the pressure where it's coming from. So that's all I have to say. I'm not going to get back up anymore, but really I think this needs to be put at bay until the parking committee can get some kind of short-term resolution and then look towards the long term.
When is the parking committee? What's your schedule? I don't know.
I have a
no
meeting
idea.
tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.
Okay. Well, I think it's an important topic.
I think so too.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
By the way, that is not an official city council appointed. It's myself and a couple of members from the chamber.
Come forward, please.
My name's Ron MacArthur. I'm the Assistant General Manager of the Holiday Inn over on the island as well. And just to reiterate what Lee said, it's not that we're necessarily against the policies that are being put in place. It's more so that we're looking for a common solution. And I was actually in the meeting the other day where this motion was made to put this idea forward, to have this, enforced on the weekends. And there was 10 people in the room that voted on it. And I know that that's not a general consensus of the entirety of that island. And I know that, we have an opportunity like tomorrow in the parking committee and whatnot to, push this date back a little bit, give us an opportunity to find a common solution to where, yes, you're not going to make everybody happy, but it's better than making a room full of 8 people happy and then the rest of the island unhappy. So
that's an assumption on your part. The rest of the island not necessarily going to be unhappy. See, you're painting the entire beach with one brush. It doesn't work that way.
And that's not what I'm doing at all. I spent this afternoon in my office making phone calls. I probably spoke to 30 or 40 people this afternoon. And like I said, we are not against this policy whatsoever.
What's your interim policy?
If you'd please just let me finish. All I'm asking is for the date to be pushed back to give us an opportunity.
What is your option?
I'm asking that we
just be quiet. I'll talk when I want to.
Wait a second. Let's be polite amongst each other.
Is everything okay? All I'm asking is for an opportunity for us to get together and to find a common solution instead of jumping to a radical solution and implementing it immediately. That's all I'm asking.
Radical solution is involving you're going to enforce the law. That's a radical solution. That's kind of asking a lot.
That's open into that's open to interpretation.
It's the law. The parking limit is a law.
Well,
you're going to choose which law you don't want to impose, huh? That's what you're telling me.
Well, it hasn't been enforced on Saturdays and Sundays in the 9 months that I've lived here, and I haven't been here very long. In the 9 months I've been here, it has not been enforced. All I'm asking is that you give us an opportunity to find a common solution instead of jumping to a conclusion.
What common solution do you intend to propose for tomorrow's meeting?
And that's what that's what we plan on sitting and finding out tomorrow. I don't have that answer.
So you don't have an answer. You're going to the meeting without an answer.
Are you kidding me?
Unfortunately, that's all I have to say. I apologize.
Let's have a timeout on that one. It is an issue. Parking is an issue. Hopefully, is there anyone else with other issues? Well, of course, they have parking. They can come forward. I don't think I see anyone else. I think I can close public comment. Is that correct? It is correct. Public comment is closed. We will move on to the consent agenda. Is there anyone that wants to pull an item or otherwise talk about an item?
Sir, just a question. Ms. Falk, I gave you some revisions late to the city council minute meetings. With those, did you have a chance to make those changes? Great.
Yes.
With that, I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second. Is this voice vote? Yes. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It passes 5-0. That moves us to 4A. This one is, does it have this ordinance does it have a future date reading, please?
Yes, this will have a second public hearing on November 4th.
On November 4th. All right, I will read the ordinance, or the title of the ordinance only. An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending the Land Development Regulations, Part 2 of the Code of the City of Vero Beach, relating to medical marijuana dispensaries, providing for conflict and severability, providing for an effective date, requested by City Council. Staff comment, please.
Well, thank you, Mayor. For the record, I'm Tim McGarry, the Director of Planning and Development. Based on our first reading, you directed the staff to revise the separation requirements between residential and these medical dispensaries from 200 to 500 feet, which we did in the ordinance, and also ask us to exclude Sundays from the operation, which we have done in the ordinance. I have if you look on the map, we show the reduction in area. Two of the parcels to the far south I don't show in there, but they're on the charter the charter for the nursery area, so we just left those out. But unless you have some questions of me.
What's the little
I don't know. It's a little vacant. I didn't go out and look at these properties. I know I was asked that question. What's this, that little stub out there? Is that what you're asking on the west?
Yeah.
Yeah, little.
Yeah.
I'm a little-
I didn't see anything on the property. It looked vacant on our GIS and on that, but I haven't been out there, so I couldn't tell you.
Are we forced to include it or not? I mean, I don't know.
Well, I was just using the 500, using the separation requirements. I mean, that's all it was. And I said, we're not doing an overlay zone here. This is just to show you graphically where possible locations are.
All right, Council.
I move to have a second hearing for
Well, let's
November
open it.
4th.
Well, hold on. You have to have a hearing.
Public hearing, and Mr. Digg was here earlier. I don't know whether he is now. Do you want to speak about this, sir? Please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Ken Digg, 1846 21st Avenue. Apologize, I didn't have enough papers for everybody. I thought I wasn't going to have enough time to get to the copy place, but I did come here and I didn't want to leave because it was an interesting meeting. But anyway, I apologize. One quick question before I begin my points. The area that you have up on the map, is that the only area where the dispensaries could happen within inside the city limits of the area that's outlined in red?
Yeah,
Am I
That's
correct?
my understanding.
Okay.
Saying yes.
Suggestions for revised draft ordinance amending the city's land development regulations relating to medical marijuana dispensaries. See Section 64.654, Conditional Use Requirements and Special Conditions. I asked about the little jog, and it's to my left on the map. It's considered vacant property, and I was wondering if you could just leave that jog out and put a straight line there. Remove the vacant, and that's what I'm referring to here. Remove the vacant property on the west side of the railroad tracks from the proposed selling area. Place all proposed possible dispensaries on east side of the railroad tracks within the proposed selling area. And I have C map. No medical marijuana treatment centers within the selling zone. CA. Change hours of operations Monday through Friday, 9 or 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday, 9 to 12 p.m. This coincides with other dispensaries in other states. I took some time and looked up some information about these type of dispensaries in other states that allow them and how long they've had them. It does create problems with the longer hours, and you can look up the information yourselves, or I can supply it. It does create problems later on down the road, so I ask you consideration in redoing the hours. Number 4, ensure city code officials have proper authority to check licenses and all necessary paperwork to operate the dispensary once in operation. CD4. Number 5, post conspicuous signs on all 4 sides of the dispensary that no loitering is allowed on the property. See C5, D2, and D3. Right now it's only on 3 sides. Before I go to number 6, the reason I say no medical marijuana treatment centers, you're referring to a dispensary. If you look into the statute that they're enacting, when you have your medical marijuana treatment centers, those centers are allowed to do other things. I don't want to go into everything that they can do. I do have a copy of the statute with me, and you all have that, right? The statute. All right, so if you look in there, there's other things that they can do there. I know you're just referring to the dispensary, and my thinking was, in the event that this passes on the state ballot, our city says the only thing that you can have in this zone is a dispensary, not a treatment center. And there are folks from other states where they really crack down on this. They're looking at Florida to come in and basically set up their shops. So you might want to take a look at what a treatment center is. And if you look up, I think it's pronounced tinctures, that's an interesting situation there that they refer to in the statute of what they can do inside the treatment centers. On the 6th, major pharmacies use approximately 2,000 square feet of space dedicated to dispensing pharmaceuticals. 5,000 square feet seems a little over-enthusiastic unless one is planning to sell on a regional level. See C3. Have the planning and zoning, number 7, have planning and zoning director provide a yearly update to city council to ensure proper compliance with the dispensary ordinance. So those are my suggestions. I hope you can take a look at them. I'll make sure you all get copies, and again, my apologies where you couldn't follow me along with copies. If you would like to give me a call and find out where I've gathered this information from, I'll be more than happy to share it with you. And I know you want to do everything what is in the best interest for our community to protect us. This could really snowball, really as it rolls down the road. If you look at the state statute and follow a little bit of the comments, they really didn't prepare too much. They are recommending, I know the Florida League is doing it, to recommend to the cities to have something in place, before it passes on the ballot. So I do understand what you're trying to do. So these are my humble suggestions of what you can put in place for the final hearing. Thank you very much.
Mr. Digg, have you shared those with Mr. McGarry?
Excuse me?
And, I mean, you had such a long list there that I could...
Yeah, I'll make sure he gets a copy too.
Yeah.
Well,
you can have mine.
Oh, I apologize.
No, take it. I save everything. You can have mine.
it would just seem that this is a topic for Mr. McGarry to come back to us on this list of items.
I just wanted to get, put it on record, just to bring it to your ears for your city manager and your planning and zoning director to take a look at and contact you all if necessary. So if you feel this is okay to include in the final draft, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Jim, any other comment other than that?
No, I don't. Tim and I can talk about the changes and see what we can do. On the little finger that's out there, Tim, I think the mistake on that, what we did here is just showed you if you took a point in place, the 500 feet of where they could locate dispensary, you'd be talking about changing a zoning or something, right, Tim, in order to...
Well, it'd be a conditional zone. I mean, it's all industrial zone, okay? And I mean, all this is based on setbacks. You start specifying specific properties, you're starting in almost to an overlay district. I mean, it could be written that way. I mean, I don't think, the other thing is medical marijuana treatment centers aren't allowed. They're not in the ordinance. They won't be allowed in the city. We don't need to. We've gone through that. But I will look at these other change of hours. I mean, those are all policy decisions, which are fine. I will take a look at those. And coming up, but a few of those I just want to point out are trouble. And obviously, a lot of the pharmacies are going to have to go through. We don't know what the state's going to do, but they're going to be doing licensing and all that. And again, we had that discussion the first reading. This is planning and zoning we're doing. We're not a regulatory body that's doing licensing, so we have to understand that. So, but we'll take a look at this and see what would be appropriate.
Mr. Digg, are you happy with that?
Just one quick comment. Sure. Thank you. On the treatment centers, I hear what Mr. McGarry is saying, and I read through your ordinance, and I'll share with him, what my eyes are seeing concerning the treatment centers, and it's kind of there. But what I'm looking at is what we call, when you write contracts or do these type of regulations, is a little bit more boilerplate. So in the event that it does pass at the state level, they can't challenge you as a city where you really lock them down, where you're saying, okay, we're not saying you can't have the dispensary, but what we're saying, you can't have the treatment centers. And to be crystal clear, because again, not to revisit what I just said, the treatment centers, there's a host of other things that you can do at the treatment centers. And you, when you get into this type of stuff, and most of you have been around, well, not all of you, but some of you have been here for a while on this earth, You know, some of this stuff can be really challenged. They bring in the heavy guns and they split every little thing that you got in the ordinance to get what they want, if this thing goes through at the state level. The state really didn't do too much to help us out. So we got to kind of do this on our own, and hopefully they don't challenge us with what you're working on. Thanks.
Okay, I heard about
Just let me add
go ahead,
something. This comes up to a legal principle. Why do we don't usually like to put prohibit in the ordinance? Because if it's not listed, it's not allowed. Okay, and we're working on ordinance, so it's expressed. It's clear that way in the ordinance, and so we try not to do the prohibit. So, attorney knows the legal term, the Latin term for that. So I'm sorry, I wanted to.
No, that's fine.
So we shouldn't explicitly say
no, because
treatment center?
the way these like zoning ordinances and laws are, if it's not expressly given, it's prohibited. And if you start putting in prohibited, then people can say you didn't mean that, and it just creates confusion. We're trying to get away from that. I know we have some of those in the ordinance. We're trying to get there. Okay.
Tim, have you changed your license? You'll be dispensing licenses for this. Have you added that to your licensing?
Well, you mean the business tax?
Yeah,
there'll be a business tax. That'll be an automatic, and I think I'll have to look to make sure we have it. But the business tax is, it's nothing. It's to do business with the city as long as
we have no control under it.
Yeah. Okay.
And actually, if I could just add, what the county has done also, remember we joined in with the county basically in the pill mill regulations, which were adopted by the county and are effective countywide unless the city opts out. And Dylan Rangel, the county attorney, I was talking with him this evening, they have incorporated
That's right.
similar regulations into that ordinance to also govern the business tax receipt situation on the medical marijuana dispensaries too. So we'll be looking at that and also seeing if the council will want to make sure that that's also applicable in the city or not.
That's good.
Any further comment, or are we ready for a vote?
Well, just let me.
Okay, go forward, sir. I didn't see you. I beg your pardon.
I'm Harold Brooks. I'm a dentist. I have office at 3036 20th Street. I just want to make sure you all know that marijuana is a Schedule I drug. No one in the United States is permitted to write a prescription for it, even in Colorado, even in the state of Washington, or any of the other 21 states. However, Eric Holter and the Attorney General has agreed to allow states to allow the physicians to write for a Schedule I drug. I think that Eric Holter, before he leaves office, will downgrade marijuana to Schedule II or Schedule III, where it should be, or Schedule IV or V. If they do that, all these regulations are passé. You can get marijuana at Publix. You can get marijuana at CVS Pharmacy. It will not be controlled by the city, the state, or a county government if it's downgraded to a Schedule II. I can write a prescription for it. I can write a prescription for a Schedule III. So that's something that you may be aware of, because if a bunch of more states vote this in, that it's going to be legal to write a prescription for a Schedule I, and the federal government kind of looks away, how often are they going to do that before they change it? Who can change it? Congress can change it. The House of Representatives, I think, will vote for it pretty soon. Who else can change it? Eric Holder can change it. The Health and Human Services can change it. It also requires a treaty change. We have a treaty called the Simple Treaty with other countries to eliminate Schedule I drugs. That has to be changed. So I think all that will happen in Washington before this ordinance that we have before us will take advantage of whatever happens. I do want you to know that research on marijuana is controlled by one organization. No one in the United States is allowed to do any research on marijuana unless it's approved by the National Institute of Drug Abuse. It's not called drug use. It's called drug abuse. No research has been approved to prove the ability of marijuana to cure things. It's only been approved to give the bad side of marijuana. Marijuana was originally included in the Controlled Substance Act in 1970 by Richard Nixon to kind of control the student rioting. The proposal was it was going to be there until more research shows that marijuana is helpful. Of course, that research is kind of passed out. University of Colorado now has $180,000 from the state of Colorado to do research other than the NIAID, which is National Institute of Drug Abuse. Their research is very flawed. If you do research, I do research every night. If you read their research, and Scientific America has a big thing in August about how bad their research is. I also want you to know that the World Health Organization and the American Medical Association has approved amendments that marijuana and other drugs, not just marijuana, all drugs, should not be a criminal act. They should be addicted and treated medically as addictions. 750,000 people in the United States every year are arrested for marijuana alone. 750,000. That's too many lives to be ruined for an addiction problem. And 9% of people that do marijuana are addicted. 9% of people that do coffee are addicted, by the way. So I think there's a lot of good medical advances for marijuana. That's not for the topic for today. But I object to people that are saying that this is going to be a huge opportunity for the people in the streets to get marijuana. I think it's going to be a huge opportunity for people with cancer, people in pain, people with insomnia, people with back pain. My son runs a large facility in Colorado. And they now have little patches they put on people. You don't have to smoke it. More people are buying the patches and the little gummy bears than smoking. According to the ordinance that's going to be approved by Florida, you're going to have to smoke it because they don't want the gummy bears to get to the kids. But you don't have to smoke marijuana to get it. You can get it just as well in a little patch, the THC and the CBD. You can get it in a little patch. It's great for insomnia, which a lot of people suffer from. And I think it's going to be a medical facility that should be personally by the hospital instead of back alleyway. I think it should be available to people that have seizures, cancer patients, people that need it, Lou Gehrig's disease. There are so many proven results medically for marijuana that you shouldn't have it in a back alley and have guards out in front. It's going to be about the same as what Publix has to do to control their Vicodin. I prescribe Vicodin every day. I have people in pain every day. I prescribe Valium every day. I prescribe Halcyon every day. And marijuana is nowhere near as bad as any of those. 16,000 people died of Valium overdose. No one has died of marijuana overdose. It takes 300,000 cigarettes, 10 milligrams each, to kill somebody, kill half of them. It takes 20 Valium. So it's a rather safe drug. It's very good. You've got to have a different opinion of it and allow, I think, medical use. I think you're going to have to anyway. The control is on the people that don't need it, that are doing it to get high. And I don't think putting people in jail is a way to solve those people. I think either medically or socially, you got to reach out to those people. I think a big thing is getting people jobs, giving them opportunities, going out in the schools and preaching to them how bad all addictions are, not arresting them and putting them in jail. And that's the way World Health Organization and the American Medical Association agree. They just passed the amendment in August. Okay, I thank you very much. Good luck with your restrictions, but I think by the time it goes in about a year, it's going to be about a year if it's voted in, that it will be outmoded anyway because Schedule 2 drug or Schedule 3 drug instead of Schedule 1. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Counsel.
Move to adopt this ordinance as presented.
May I amend that, Mr. Fletcher, please, because we need a November 4th hearing?
Correct, November 4th hearing.
All right, Mrs. Turner. Mrs.
Well, just under conversation, you know, I look at that the map. Can you put that back on, if possible? My apologies. One of the comments that Mr. Brooks had said is that he didn't like it into the back alleyways, and I kind of agree with that. Is there a possibility of putting that up, maybe opening up an area next to the hospital? I think if it was next to a hospital, people would be less likely to.
It's county
The
property.
hospital's a county, yeah.
Well, we've got property that gets pretty close to that area. The idea is to keep something like that out in the open instead of in a closed back area, or put it next to the police station.
Well, it is kind of next to the police
Yeah, I see
station.
that.
And it's close to the city hall, too.
Mr. Craig,
Well,
we have some space upstairs. At $14.11 a square.
All right, I'll call the motion then, Mrs. Bach.
Goodness gracious.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Ware?
Yes. That moves us to 4A2. An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, banning all of the 15-foot alley shown on the plat of the Ocean Corporation subdivision lying between Track D and E, lying between the east right-of-way of State Highway A1A and the west right-of-way of the abandoned Coral Avenue is recorded in Plat Book 4 at page 81 of the Public Records of Indian River County, Florida, retaining a utility easement providing for conflict and severability, providing for an effective date requested by the Public Works Director. This is a second reading, is it not, or am I?
Yes, sir, that's the final.
So this would be the final reading.
This is an ordinance where we're abandoning an alleyway that actually dead ends into an abandoned street, and it's only so long and has no use to us, so we are retaining the utility easement across this property and would highly recommend that we close the alley.
Any public comment on this? Seeing no public comment, I've closed public comment.
Motion for approval?
Second?
Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Ware?
Yes. That moves us to 4B resolutions. 4B1, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, supporting reauthorization of the Florida Enterprise Zone Program currently set to sunset on December 31st, 2015, providing for an effective date requested by City Council. And this is a result of the last City Council meeting where we had a presentation by the Chamber.
Correct.
Correct.
All right, any staff comment on this? Any public comment? Council comment or a resolution, please?
Move to adopt.
Second. You can have that one.
Mr. Fletcher makes the motion. Mr. Kramer seconds. Mrs. Bach, please.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Ware?
Yes. Okay, 4B2, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, supporting Florida State Senator Thad Altman's request for a Florida Attorney General opinion concerning certain provisions of the lease agreement between the Orlando Orange County Expressway Authority, now known as the Central Florida Expressway Authority, and All Aboard Florida Operations, LLC, providing for an effective date requested by City Council. Jim, staff comment?
Yes, the comment is, as you know, that there is an agreement under the use of that property which limits the opening of stops in the Treasure Coast. And I believe what Senator Altman's asking is that they be audited to make sure there's not a conflict if, in fact, the Indian River County becomes a site that needs to have a stop, that we don't have to negotiate with a third party to pay restitution of some type.
Public comment? Seeing none, I close public comment, and I think I see none. Council comment or resolution, please?
Move to adopt as presented.
Second?
I'll call the motion, Mrs. Bach.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Ware?
Yes. Okay, that moves us to 5A.
Sir, we have an add-on item.
Oh, that's right. You
4B3.
do indeed. Let me find it.
Joint meeting.
Let me find it. I have
You
it.
need mine?
At least I think I do. Okay, we have 4B3, which was added on, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, authorizing the time and place for a joint public meeting between the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, the Town Council of Indian River Shores, and the Board of the County Commissioners of Indian River County, providing for an effective date. Mr. O'Connor.
Well, actually, I can speak to
Mr.
this.
Okay.
This is a new requirement in state law that when you're going to meet outside you're basically outside your city limits with another entity, you have to state that in a resolution.
Yeah.
Move
right.
approval?
Any public comment? Seeing none. I
Sorry,
have a
I
motion
preempted.
for approval. I have
Second.
a second. Mr. Fletcher seconds. Is this a voice
Sorry.
vote?
Nope, it's a roll call.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yeah.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. All right. Now that moves us to 5A and B. We'll deal with them separately, of course, but they're coupled. 5A, an ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending Division 1 and 2 of Article 3 in Chapter 78 of the Code of the City of Vero Beach relating to sanitary sewers, septic systems, and septic tank effluent pumps, step systems, providing for conflict and severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date requested by the Water and Sewer Director. This is the first reading of this, I believe, right?
Yes, sir, and we can have the public hearing on November 4th.
All right, no, public hearing on November 4th. Staff comment, please.
Good evening, Council. Rob Bolton, Water and Sewer Director. I have a quick, let me find it real quick, but a quick PowerPoint to kind of go over the highlights of what you have in front of you tonight, which is the ordinance and the resolution for our STEP program that we've been working on from the beginning. Okay. This was presented in front of the Utilities Commission this morning. They recommended for approval to move forward with it. So let's see if we can get through here. The ordinance modifies the existing city code, Chapter 78. There's three things that it modifies in that code. The first is it will require a mandatory pump out and inspection of the septic systems on a 5-year basis. The second is it establishes the STEP program itself. And the third is that it requires private wastewater systems to document maintenance activities, deficiencies, and take corrective action. Okay, under Section 7861 purpose, there was some additional language added to implement the STEP program. Under definitions, we modified building drain definition and building sewer definition to reflect the changes to the plumbing code that have occurred since the last time the language was put in place under Chapter 78. Under new definitions, we added definitions for the low-pressure sewage collection system, pump panel, pump vault, the STEP system itself, and also the application. Under 7864, connection with sewers, we updated the language to reflect the change to Florida Statute 381.0065 versus the older Florida statute number so that we come current again with our code. Under 7883, we added this language in for the 5-year pump out inspection. So in essence, this does not take effect till January 1 of 2016 for the pump outs. It then gives people 5 years to come into compliance. So really, the first time that they need to have an inspection done would be, by mandatory, would be January 1 of 2021. So our intent is that we will monitor as this takes place and the inspections are done. They will be required to turn in the forms, the inspection forms to the city. We already know all the septic tanks within the city limit. We can then populate our GIS database to show who has turned in inspection reports sometime in November or so or October of 2020. We will send letters out saying to those that have not performed it, saying, by the way, there's a code out there that requires you to have them pumped out and inspected prior to January 1, 2021. So,
do we have a notification process that you're going to send out to the people to notify them that, in fact, these new ordinances are there and they need to pump out by?
We can. We hadn't planned
Otherwise,
that.
they won't know that there's a new ordinance that would require them to do something.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, I wouldn't do it today, but I
Oh,
can
no.
do it
No,
by,
absolutely.
sometime before 2016, we would do that.
Yes.
We will notify everybody as we move through the process of installing the lines that, they're now available,
That's-
and then we
yeah.
can take advantage of that as we're doing that.
Some time scheduled to let everyone know that they have a requirement coming up on them.
Right. The reason I put January 1, 2016, I was asked that today, why that date versus immediate, and I said that, we're going to start this process of installing lines. The last thing I want to do now is put that in place and have people go out and start pumping their
Yeah.
system, finding problems,
Yeah.
and then we're trying to jump all over the city correcting action
Yeah.
that we've
plan.
generated, you know what I'm saying, ourselves. So
plan.
this way I felt it gives us a year to get the line started in the ground, and then we can start
Yeah, it's a goal.
the inspection process. Go ahead.
Question.
Good plan.
How would you administer this? I mean, it looks like you're going to need another staff to be collecting these inspection reports, getting them over the EIS,
Now,
GIS, getting them.
what we're going to do is we have already generated the form. It'll be the septic tank contractor's responsibility when they go out and do a pump out in the city limits, and we'll sit down with all the contractors, that they then, once they do the inspection, that they turn that form into us within 10 days of when they did the pump out. From there, it's just, the form is going to kind of be labeled of whether everything's okay or it's not okay. And then it's just a matter of handing that to our GIS person, and they're just going to go into that parcel, check a box that it's done. So, there's one field that will generate, they'll populate that box, and in a matter of minutes can generate a report that says who's in compliance and who's not in compliance. So GIS is amazing in the amount of things that you can get out of it that you would think that is, in the old days, were labor-intensive stuff.
Yeah.
Now is done like that, and it's very simple to keep those
Great tool.
fields populated. Yeah.
Great tool.
Yeah, I mean, even something coming into our office, when the person opens the mail, they can open up that GIS thing right to that parcel and check that box, and it's done.
Great.
That fast. So,
Great plan.
and right now we have the GIS tool available throughout the city on whoever. Right now, it's on all of our laptops over at Water and Sewer. So,
Great.
and we're actually sometime in the future, I'll be coming in here where it'll be on an iPad and even available to you, that you can go right in and pull up data right off of an iPad
Excellent.
anywhere. So that's how far we've come. So anyway, that's the compliance with the pump out and inspection that we've put forward. The next is the step system itself. One, there'll be an application required. So in Section 1, it more or less defines the application process. Step 2, or in Section 2, it defines what the responsibilities of the city and the property owner are for installation and connection. In Section 3, it defines the operation and maintenance requirements for both the city and the property owner. Section 4, it talks about modifications of the step system. So if you have a step system on your property and all of a sudden you decide you want to do an addition on your house and it's in the way, well, it's your responsibility to relocate it to another part of the yard of wherever your addition is going to go, and relocate it at your expense, not at the city's expense. Section 5 talks about access easements, where there'll be a 5-foot easement around all the parts, pieces, and panel up on the house. And then Section 6 is Wayne's release and indemnification language that he makes sure is in everything. As far as private wastewater collection and transmission systems, going through this process with the Department of Environmental Protection, we now fall under the South Florida group instead of the Central Florida group. And they've been implementing some stuff for quite a few years in Martin County, and they've pushed the responsibility of compliance, since they don't have any compliance officers or anything, to make sure that private wastewater systems, i.e. lift stations or private wastewater systems that are on private property that are connected to the city's utility, is our responsibility to make sure that they are in compliance with their permit. So they want us in control, and when they mean control, we don't have to maintain it. However, we have to make sure that they have hired somebody and have somebody on retainer to continue to do the maintenance, and that they are replacing things in accordance with their permit requirements. So we've now gone through and added language to our code so that we become now the compliance officer for that. And so in the first part, we changed the language, require the property owner to make sure that they keep everything and maintain everything to the original DEP requirements. In Section E, we've established a 90-day, so if they hire someone and that person fills out the reports and says, hey, your pump's bad. You're supposed to have 2 pumps, you have 1 pump that's bad. It's $8,000 for a pump. It gives them 90 days to make those arrangements to have it come into compliance versus, the next day type thing. I can tell you there's systems out there that are supposed to have 2 pumps that have 1, and they wait until that 1 fails, and then they only replace that 1. And that's not the way their permit, and that's, there's a big opportunity for them to generate sanitary sewer overflows onto the ground. And a lot of those cases are in, areas where you have multifamily complexes that are larger, that have a board of directors or whatever, and they get into arguments over expenditures of money, and this will kind of,
Homeowners
push them a little.
association,
Homeowner associations, and everybody's watching what they spend, and everybody thinks that they're an expert on everything. So you end up with some of them that say, no, we only need 1, and really their permit requirements are that they have 2. There's 2 there so that one's a backup for the other one in case of failure. So this will force them into coming into compliance. And so under F, the operation maintenance records, they need to keep records. And then also under noncompliance, establishes the right for the city if they are not keeping up with their maintenance and they are creating sanitary sewer overflows or something, we have the right to go in and shut their water off.
Wayne, have we set for the Code Enforcement Board, have we set a fine for them when they don't come into compliance, if they don't come into compliance? It's something we would have to add.
No, what would apply would be just the standard
$50 or whatever
penalties,
$50,
and then of course repeats it goes up.
Right. Okay.
And that would be our first avenue. Would be, notification through the code enforcement, and then up through shutting the water off if they don't comply.
Rob, is it my understanding then, if any of the system fails, that it's up to the owner to do all the repairs and all the costs keep
on a private wastewater system? We're not talking about STEP. We're talking about private wastewater systems that are grinder pump systems. I'll give you an example. If you go over the 17th Street Bridge, there's an 80-unit multifamily complex sitting there with their own private lift station. Yeah. So in those cases, the homeowners association operates that, and if if they have issues, and then they have 90 days to make those repairs. They're responsible for all those things. We're not. They were never built to city specifications. They were never taken over for ownership by the city. Okay. So they
but under
permitted.
STEP, it's a little
STEP
different.
STEP will be our responsibility. So under the STEP system, and I'll stop there and discuss this because we're about to move on to resolution. But under the STEP system, the responsibilities, there'll be 2 types. Type 1 would be you own a septic tank and a drain field, and your septic tank is fine, and you sign up to become a member of a STEP system, and you install just a little pump basin with a pump in it and a panel on the side of your house. In those situations, we will maintain that pump basin, the electrical panel, the line to the street, everything in the street, and we will come out and pump your septic tank out on a routine basis. We do not maintain the septic tank. So if in the future we do a pump out and there's a problem with the septic tank and it needs to be replaced, then it's the homeowner's responsibility to replace or repair that septic tank at that time. Type 2 would be where you might have a septic system that was built in the 50s and you don't have a bottom in your septic tank, and therefore it's no good for the STEP system that you would be applying for. In that case, you would have to replace your septic system. In those situations, when you replace it, we will take on the responsibility of that septic tank with the pump and everything, so you will not have any responsibilities anymore in the future. So we're hoping that some people that are teetering on one versus the other, that will kind of move towards a newer tank, everything else, which is watertight and less problems for everybody in the future.
So when you're talking about changes to Chapter 78, that's for everybody that has a septic system, or is that for those big private systems?
In Chapter 78, there was three things. One was a change to what we call the private wastewater disposal, which is a
Correct.
person that has a septic system, and now they're going to have to pump it out.
And you're going to make them do it every 5 years.
Every 5 years. Okay. Then we added the language for the step system, which was the whole entire program. And then the third part where it was people that have private systems that are private sewer components on their property that they're responsible for maintaining. We've now tightened up some of their responsibilities and their reporting and their compliance. So any questions on the ordinance at this point?
But currently, we don't mandate that people do their pumps out.
No, it was just simply that, we required them to make connection, we required certain things, but we always left it up to them to get a permit from the Department of Environmental Protection. It's just now we're finally getting to a point where they're wanting us to make sure that they're maintaining them properly.
Just so there's no confusion, that mandated pumping out is not a mandate to connect to the step system.
No.
But if in that 5 years they go out and pump your system out and you have a damaged septic tank and we have run the 2-inch line down the street, you will go to the health department and they're going to tell you you have to tap into the sewer because it be an existing service. So at that time it becomes mandatory if you have a tank that's not functioning properly and we have put the line down your street.
Good plan.
Which line are you talking about? The step line or
The step line. We put the 2-inch
Low
step
pressure
line
line.
down.
All right, public comment? Yes, sir, come forward.
Just a question.
Oh, you have to come to the podium.
The mic
Sorry
first so
about
we can
that.
we want the public to be able to hear you. Well, it's on television.
My name is Ken Giel, Vero Beach resident. I haven't seen any indication what the costs are going to be. And also where I can find more information about this system, for example, what went into the selection of the basins, and other type background information that I think would be very relevant if we're going to have a public hearing in a few weeks. So if you could comment where I could get that information, and a little bit more about the costs and how much we're going to pay, how much the city's going to pay, what kind of incentives that might be available to us. I think that would be very relevant.
Section B will do the finances, but you asked another question that needs answering.
Yeah, when we get to the resolution, that'll handle a lot of your questions on incentives, the costs, and everything else that's involved. As far as the basins, I worked with a company called Orenco, and they are out of Oregon, and actually did a lot of research on step systems and found they were probably the industry leader in putting these types of systems in, and also putting in waste systems that treat the effluent coming out of these step systems. Made a bunch of phone calls to different parts of the United States, to Tennessee, South Alabama Utilities, another one up in North Carolina. Gentleman's name, I laughed because his name was Davy Jones, and it was Davy Jones Locker is what I kept thinking. But and found out track records, so to see with these systems what type of problems they were having, and every one of them was having a really good success with them. They didn't solicit me. I found them on the website in a Google search. So what I've found after researching and talking to them for probably almost a year now is they are almost like the Kenmore of the products out there, where they go through and take a manufacturer's product that they've put out, do a lot of testing on it, find ways to modify it and improve their product, and then turn around and offer a 5-year warranty. So in our case, we're getting 5-year warranties from them, where I haven't found any other manufacturer out there that's going to offer more than 1-year warranty. And so some of their parts are made by other companies. However, they're providing the service, the manufacturing, and all the background engineering that went into it. They also do partner with companies like for polytanks. Roth Environmental is the group. They're up in kind of up in New Jersey or New York area. And they worked with Roth and tested both Roth and some other companies that are out there and took their poly tanks and put them through vacuum testing until they failed, and then worked with them to improve and to put stiffeners in until they didn't get any failures, and then have partnered with them as really, if you're going to put an Orenco system in, you have to put it in a Roth tank. They're not going to sell me the pumps if I'm going to put it in something else that makes their name bad by it creating an issue. So actually I've worked with getting pricing from Roth, and they can kind of meet our local pricing that we would get from another manufacturer if we buy truckloads, which I imagine we will be doing, and become kind of the warehouse for things. So their pricing, very comparable, less than a 10% differential with something that we could buy local. And them too are giving a 5-year installation plus, if we have a problem, they actually pay to replace the tank, so they'll pay a contractor to come in. So, I mean, there's really good product stuff out there with these companies that I've been dealing with. And first I thought we'd be paying a premium for this stuff, but what I'm finding is I'm really not. And so that's the name of the company. So you can, Orenco is Orenco, and ENCO, Orenco Systems. And you can Google them, and all kinds of stuff will pop up. At Roth, ROTHH. We are working with ACI, which is a local company out of Fort Pierce that does concrete casting work. And Orenco is working with them on a design that for a concrete septic tank that actually has steel in it. Versus a lot of times they've been using the fiber mesh reinforcement, which necessarily isn't good for the environment that it's in, and actually it'll be thicker wall tanks and stuff that's capable of handling wheel loads, that kind of stuff. So we're going to install all this stuff ourselves, the city, or are you going to have the septic tank contractors will do all the installation. It's just that we will more or less sell the when a homeowner comes in, they'll be buying the material from us. So that way it'll be the same material. We'll be certifying all the testing, everything else. Then the contractor will coordinate with us to either pick it up at our warehouse, or in the case of the concrete tanks, I'm not going to move them from ACI to our warehouse to somewhere else. So we'll be contracting for them to install them at the site type thing. But that's our plan for right now. So we will receive the stuff through our warehouse and issue it back out to the contractors once everything's been paid for. But yeah, if you get on Orenco, and also Roth, that's probably the only two that we're dealing with right now for both the tanks and then also Orenco there's the type 1 that I explained in the very beginning. There will be a PVC style pump basin that they've engineered and that we'll be working with. That's the smallest unit itself. So with that's the ordinance changes. Moving on to the resolution.
You wanted for City Council, you want to do one at a time, or what's the pleasure on this?
Yeah, let's do one at a time. I'll make a motion to adopt this as presented.
Okay, is there any other public comment? We do have further public comment.
This is just a resolution to update
the codes and ordinance.
Codes, right? Okay.
Right.
Yeah, my comment will cover both, I think, but I'll just do it now and knock it out. My name is Dan Lamson. I'm the director of the Indian River Neighborhood Association. I've got a small statement to read. The Indian River Neighborhood Association strongly supports the proposal of the city's Director of Utilities, Rob Bolton, to install a hybrid sewer collection system in the Bethel Creek area. Our organization has appeared before your council on several occasions, citing the problems of deteriorating water quality of the lagoon. We appreciate efforts of this council in approving a strong fertilizer ordinance to protect this water body from nitrogen and phosphorus in fertilizers. At the time you adopted this ordinance, you were aware, as we were, that controlling pollution from these sources was only part of the effort needed to restore the lagoon. A critical second effort is greatly to limit, if not entirely stop, leakage from individual septic systems. Scientists have not been able to provide those of us working to protect the lagoon with all the statistics we would like to have, indicating which source of pollution is more serious: fertilizers, septic leakage, or runoff. So we have to proceed on the assumption that a full effort must be undertaken to control all three of these contributors if we are to protect the lagoon. Our organization congratulates Rob Bolton in having brought forward a sewer collection system that can save money for the city and property owners and save the disruption that major sewer lines involve. We appreciate that it was not easy to bring this project forward, ready for your approval. The permitting process alone was a pain. While we are more than ready for all of the septic systems in the city to be converted to a central collection system, we support the proposal before you to initiate installation of the STEP system in Bethel Creek. This peninsula surrounded by the lagoon is surely an appropriate choice for launching this project because of the likelihood of their contributing pollution into nearby waters. We cannot close our endorsement of this project without expressing one regret: that the city intends to allow property owners to decide whether they will or will not hook up. We urge you to reconsider your opposition to making connections mandatory. This is the only way the system can be as effective as intended, and is the only way to make it financially practical for the city to make this investment. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your comment. Any further public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. And somebody wanted to make a.
I made a motion to adopt as presented. Wayne, do we have the authority to require them to hook up?
I think we have some language in the code now that, I don't know, Rob may have an opinion on whether or not we would enforce that.
The question is,
do we have the authority to require them to hook up?
Mandatory,
to the STEP system.
To the STEP system?
Yeah.
You can. I mean,
but it's
you
not
have,
currently there.
The way that we wrote this is we did not make it mandatory for
Okay.
them to connect. And the way that we've talked about it in the resolution, it's not mandatory because that was not the intent of council or anything when we started this. It was a proactive type project, and it's not in there.
He'd mentioned it, and I just wanted clarification on it. I didn't know.
But yet you have it in effect when you have to have an inspection in 5 years. If there's got a failing system,
That's true.
they have to connect.
Yeah.
So,
By default, it's going to be
By
required.
default, you're not telling everybody on day one you have 90 days to connect or whatever
Okay.
time frame it is.
Yeah.
However,
You're right,
you
Mark.
will capture everybody over time.
Capture them. That's a good term.
Okay, I have a motion
moves to a hearing on the November 4th.
to move the hearing to November 4th, and I have a second from Mrs. Turner. Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. All right, the B portion of it is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, relating to septic tank effluent pump STEP systems, providing incentives for installation of STEP systems, amending the existing water and sewer rate structure to address STEP systems, providing for conflict and severability, and providing for an effective date requested by the Director of Water and Sewer. This is the first hearing, and it will come forward November 4th
Yes, sir.
for public hearing, correct?
Okay, under the resolution, it does two things. One, it establishes priority basins, and the second is it sets up an incentive program called Step Up and Save. So under the basins, we had worked with our GIS department and took a Volusia County report and kind of modified it to meet our needs because, things are a little bit different between here and Volusia County. So what it ended up generating was a map showing all the septic tanks and a color coding and assignment of a number to each one of the properties based on the size of the lot, the distance to the water, if it was abutting the water, if it had a swale in front yard, the distance to the seasonal high water table, the density of the home, the lot size. All these were taken into account, and we then assigned values to it and populated this map. At that point, we kind of
took the approach of let logic fall where it may, and we looked at it and said the best place is on the barrier island, which everybody said to start with. But what it did show was the worst area was Basin 1, Bethel Creek area, which was the exact area that the health department for years has said is the worst area in Vero Beach. So it supported the health department's claims of what they saw in permitting and everything else. So the next area that we would go to would be, I think it's called Bethel by the Sea, just south of the Bethel Creek area. Then further down into the Riamar areas of Sections 3 and Sections 4 as time goes on, and then over to the Barrier Island along the Main Relief Canal, and further out west along the Main Relief Canal, and then finally to the southern portions of the city that are the farthest removed from the lagoon itself. And then Section 8 is everything else that's not really lumped into these basin areas. So that's the basin breakdown that we will be following. Somehow we got off key here, but let me get back to it. Slideshow. Current slide, there we go. Okay. So then we have the Step Up and Save Incentive Program. So the Step Up and Save credit is $2,290 for property owners that sign up within 12 months of the lines being put into the neighborhoods, and then we notify the property owner the lines are installed, you can now connect.
I can stop you there.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that figure come from? How is it determined?
That figure is the same figure as the wastewater impact fee.
Okay. So you're just crediting the wastewater impact fee on it. Thank you.
Okay. And then B is the wastewater utility extension credit. So you will get another credit of $1,100 for property owners that sign up within 12 months and pay cash.
Okay. And how is that determined?
Okay. If they don't pay cash, then they can do a 10-year 0% interest loan for the remaining balance of everything there. That $1,100 equates to the cost of the 2-inch line in the street and the 1-inch service line to the home. So in essence, we're giving credit to everything that's installed in the street and the wastewater impact fee, and only charging people if you sign up in advance within the 1 year. They only have to pay for the cost of the construction on their lot itself.
So they finance for 10 years, so it would be put on their water bill. Is that how would you do it?
If they finance for 10 years, they don't get the $1,100 credit. And we have yet to determine, we're going to try to do an assessment roll type thing to where they would pay on their assessment. It will be easier for us to collect that way. We would just publish a roll every year, and then they would pay on their taxes that amount. In most cases, we're hoping people will take the $1,100 credit option because it probably makes more sense to take the cash discount up front than it is.
Yep.
In some cases, though, where people don't have the funds to do it, they may take the financing side of things and let they'll still have to pay the septic tank contractor to do the installation, but they wouldn't have to pay for the equipment. They could finance the equipment over time.
Right. Good plan.
So how is the city paying for that $1,100 that you're giving them credit? I'm still trying to get back to that one.
The $1,100 equates to the $900,000 that it's going to cost to install the lines in the streets.
Okay, that's
that
the money
you
that we
have funded now,
program.
that you have allocated to the program.
Right.
So you've already funded it. It's just in some cases we will recoup that cost for those that don't sign up early. For those that do sign up early, we won't. But either way, it's funded.
Thank you.
It requires, like I said, the third thing in here is that it'll give you a year to sign up. However, there is 12 months that they must install it. So, in other words, if you come in the 364th day and you sign up, you have 12 months from that date to make sure that it's all installed, so that people don't just take advantage of the sign up but never do the installation.
Yeah.
So for a type 1, which we described earlier, typical residential connection for a customer that will leave the septic tank in place and put the external pump basin. This is their draft application, very simple.
They will have to initial, or we will give them a copy of the Code of Ordinances so they know all the rules, regulations, and everything else. And this is kind of what the charges, fees, and credits would look like. So they would walk in the door, fill out the application. We would charge them the $1,100 for the pieces and parts that were out in the street. We would then charge them the wastewater impact fee of $2,290. We would then charge them for a PVC pump basin, which is $500. And then for the pump package, which is the pump, the vault, the filters, the electrical panel, and all the pieces involved in that, check valves and everything else, is $2,275. We then would credit them back the Step Up and Save credit of $2,290, and then the wastewater utility extension charge of $1,100. So, in essence, they would either pay, or in this case, they would pay cash of $2,775 to the city. They would then hire the septic tank contractor, which we estimate is roughly $2,500 for his work and another $500 for the sub or the electrician, or if they have an electrician on board, it's roughly $3,000 for the install. In this case, you'll have an $80 electrical permit that would have to be pulled. And then pending if they came in and signed up early and then decided to have their septic tank pump out inspected, or if they already pumped it out and inspected it, depending on how that works, that the typical Mr. George sitting behind me from Reliable told me that it was $175 is what he charges for a pump out, and for doing our inspection would be about another $7,500 or so. So they're typically $250 or so for that type of work. So the paper today quoted $5,855, which is roughly the installation and the permitting and everything. It did not include the $250 pump out, so you're right around that $6,000, $6,100 number for the installation, which is comparable of our goal of where we were trying to get to, which was close to what it costs to replace a drain field.
What if a home has two septic tanks, which many in Central Beach do?
You will have an option. One would be the most likely would be they would go to type 2, which they would install probably another tank and then route the lines to it, or maybe they could use one of the tanks and route the line to it. Chances are they're going to probably have to install another tank because it'll have to be a little deeper. In that case, you're going to be moving towards your type 2 type installation, and you're going to have some more costs for running the plumbing line. A little bit more expensive. The other option is you put these 2 units in, and then you're going to, in this resolution, it establishes the rates. The rates for 1 unit is our normal wastewater rates. If you put 2 units in, then you're going to get 2 base bills, but just 1 commodity bill. So the $19.89 a month, you would get hit twice with that. So it would probably be in long term their best interest to go ahead and modify and put 1 pump basin in than to be paying twice 2 base bills on your sewer charge. And that's what we would prefer, is 1 system per home.
Yes.
So the type 2 system is your septic tank is built in 1950s and has no bottom in it, and you have to replace it. So therefore, in this example, uses a poly tank, not the concrete tank, because I didn't have the numbers for the concrete tank yet. Same application form, is just in the change would be, instead of the $500 pump basin, you have a $950 septic tank, the same pump panel, so now your cost is $3,225. I haven't had the time to estimate those additional costs for the septic tank contractor. It'll probably be more, at least $500. I would say $500 more, somewhere in that range. There's things they don't have to do to the existing septic tank, like put risers on those tanks. First, they're going to be on this tank, so there's some cost savings, but then there's some additional digging and everything else with putting a new tank in, a larger tank. So there'll be some extra costs, and each property is going to be different. The property that has the septic system in the front yard, where it's a quick connection to the street, is going to be a lot cheaper than if it's all the way in the backyard. So, but what we're looking at is, somewhere around the $6,000 figure for the type 1, and probably somewhere around the $7,000 number for a type 2, where they have to replace everything, or maybe a little bit more. Questions?
Rob, before you if you don't mind, before you go on, those financials, would you get a copy to this gentleman?
Yeah, I'm very interested. I'm very interested in, is there some way we could get the PowerPoint slides that you just put up there?
Yeah, my copy.
Yeah.
You can have your copy, or you can have my copy, or I don't know if you posted on the.
Here's a copy up here, sir.
Yeah, we'll get you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Rob.
That question, I'm sure, will be repeated maybe posted on the website.
We could put it on the website. I think that'd
Yeah,
be
you
a
can put the
great
PowerPoint
idea.
on the
That is a good
website so that
idea.
people have the opportunity to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just put the whole presentation.
All right, public comment. I don't think I see any. All right, no public comment.
And
Council
Mayor, just for clarification, the resolution that you're looking at, we did modify. Tammy distributed, I believe, ahead of time. Yes. We worked on the financing part of it with the help from your finance director to clarify that we would be doing some form of liens on the property where they don't want to pay it all up front.
Move to adopt as presented and move forward to November 4th hearing.
I was just going to say one more thing, not to plug George twice, but in one evening, but he's already brought us 2 customers. So he's got 2 people that are
already ready to go.
Signing up, so he's ready to go.
I'll second that motion. Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Ware?
Before we move on to city clerk's matters, it's now 9:16. I plan to table my issue here for the next meeting. I've got further information I want to add to it, and it's also late at night. I think it takes more consideration than we have tonight. If that's agreeable with council.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Okay. That being
that was a hard one.
that being the case, I think we can probably press on and finish up then in the next 20 minutes or so. So we pass on to city clerk matters.
I have none.
You have none?
No, sir.
City managers matters?
Any questions that the mayor or council may have?
Well, I have a question or a subject that came up, which is this the post office lease in downtown. And I think it at least needs to come out in the public, and it needs some amount of discussion. That's the one I had for you, Jim.
Okay. As you know, the lease for the post office on 13th Avenue had a clause that said that the post office had to notify us by September the 30th of this year if they were going to purchase the property. They did not notify us of that. So in October, somewhere around the 6th or 7th, a real estate agent who represents the U.S. Post Office called up and said, we would like to renegotiate the lease. And I said, well, the term had really dropped, although we obviously can negotiate any lease you want. But I want to make it very clear that from my perspective, my recommendation to the council is that we're not very good landlords, that we should sell the building.
Yeah.
And so he got another lady on the phone at the same time and said, well, the post office doesn't buy buildings. We're not interested in that. And I said, well, the lease you have is a sort of a sweetheart deal that is not going to be duplicated in our process going forward. And she says, well, it is pretty good, $1.50 a square foot. And I said, that's unbelievably good. And I said, so the other issue that the city has is we have to maintain the outside of the building. Plus, we have people who come to council meetings and talk about handicap access to doors. And there's an expectation on the post office side that we would maintain those. We are not interested in doing that. And we went through another 30 minutes of discussion, and he finally said, well, the post office doesn't maintain the outside of the buildings, and they would expect the landlord to maintain the doors. And I said, let me tell you what you're telling me is we definitely don't want to be a landlord now. And he says, well, I understand what your issues are. And he says, couldn't you just sort of put together a proposal? And I said, well, what kind of time do you want? He says, oh, he'd like to have 5 years with a 5-year option. And I said, oh, with an escalator every year. And he says, oh, no, we don't do escalators. I said, sir, the only thing I could do then is I have to take what I think rent would be in the 5th year and start on year 1. He says, well, that wouldn't be fair. And I said, well, I try to preface this by saying that we're not really we don't want to be landlords. But the conversation ended, to get him off the phone and this other lady, is that we would try to put together a proposal that would make it advantageous to the city to lease the building to the post office. I have asked Eric Minger to take the FAA requirements, which are some of the better ones, to look as to what the FAA would require us to get back on a rate of return if they were put under the same constraints as the post office wants to put us under. And we plan to look at that. Anything that we would present to the post office obviously would come to the council for your review and recommendation and approval. But we're in no real hurry to do this unless you all think there's a mean. But it just seems like everything, when I started asking questions, they don't do this and they don't do that. And I tried to remind the guy that, hey, you're asking to use our building. It's not that we're trying to encourage you. I almost said, that's why we have emails anymore, but I didn't. I was trying to be patient with that. And so anyway, we will try to put something together. We'll bring it back to council, and I will try to submit it to them. And if it's to make sure that it's something that's advantage to the city. We would like to have the post. Don't get me wrong. The post office being there is nice, but I've had at least 2 people that have indicated an interest in the building as well. So.
Is there any council comment about the building, the future of the building, and all the rest of it? I mean, and we'd have to consider public comment too. But I'm interested in what you think.
We need to give some sort of commercially acceptable terms, but underline commercial. What is that property going for? If we rent it out to someone else, it should be equal.
Well, over by the hospital, it's about $14.15 a square foot in their lease agreements over there. And I don't know what the terms and conditions on utilities and that kind of stuff. We haven't really gotten into it.
If they want us to take care of the outside of the building, that's fine. Charge them a commercial rate.
Correct.
Where we make money off of it.
Is that agreeable?
I would just rather see us get out of the leasing, but I think you're right. The city is not a good we're not in real estate business. We're not in there to be renting buildings, and that
And I agree with it. I mean, if we could find somebody to buy it from us, and then they can rent it to the post office.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
Okay, so you're going to proceed that way, but I do have one other question about the post office, and that is the building itself. What kind of maintenance? What kind of deferred maintenance are we looking at? What's the roof like and all that sort of thing?
Roof is in pretty rough shape.
Great.
We have done a lot of patching.
How did you know
roof,
that?
And we have not really done major extensive investments in the building, waiting really for this October date to come up. And so, because if they were going to buy the building, then we would have no problem. I will tell you, their purchase price of the building was very, very cheap, and it was built into the contract.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised they did not exercise just to buy the building to resell it to someone.
I think we should know when you come back from Monty, have some idea what it would cost to the remedial work, particularly the roof, and if there's other problems, let us know what they are.
They're a rough order of magnitude cost that we can put our finger on.
Yeah. Again, a recommendation would be we sell as is, but
I agree.
We have no use for the building.
Yeah. Since you're on the firing line, where do we stand with the old diesel power plant, Wayne? Wayne, need that or?
Actually, Gene O'Neill, our attorney on that case, is still proceeding with discovery matters. He's taking depositions of the various parties that are involved. He has asked the court for a case management conference, which if the court grants that, the court will go ahead and issue a trial order, which will put some deadlines in place to say you've got to have discovery done by a certain point and try to move things along. That was the whole point in asking the court to go ahead and schedule that, because we don't seem to be getting
there's no movement
anywhere very quickly from the other side. They don't seem necessarily in a hurry to get it resolved. So Gene has talked with Jim and I both, and of course we've encouraged him to get it moving along.
Good. Thank you.
Another fine example of us being a landlord.
Yep.
It was a very good lease, and it is a good lease on the property. Unfortunately, we just haven't received any payment.
Yeah.
Any further matters for Jim? See none, many matters for Wayne?
I just had one question. I'm not sure Wayne or Jim could answer. I know that today at the Brevard County Commission, they were supposed to be having a vote on a resolution to permit issuing revenue bonds to help fund all aboard. Does anybody know if that was?
That I understand it did pass something like
pass.
3-2.
A bit frightening since, yeah.
All right, then we'll move on to city council matters. And I do have one business item here. I was instructed to contact the Florida League of Cities and see if we could participate in the legislative session on short-term rentals. And the answer is that the window for that had passed in that committee. What they're recommending, I'll read you the paragraph, but what they're recommending is, and this would be something I think we should consider, is a special bill when the legislative session occurs about December 1st. But what they're saying is that they will help us lobby on a special bill, but they've already chosen 2 legislative items in this particular area. They say the first step in the process is finding a bill sponsor, so we would have to get one of our representatives or senators to sponsor it. Reach out to your legislatures and see if they'd be interested in filing legislation to remove the preemption. The bills filed last year were opposed by the Florida Realtor Association, the Florida Vacation Rental Manager Association, Vacation Rental by Owner, among others. There are folks we need on our side of the bill, so it really comes down to if the city council wants to pursue legislation. There are other routes, of course. We would need to take action when the legislative session is held in this room. I think it's December 1st, thereabouts. I could present, or whoever's mayor at that time could present a local bill. So I'm looking for direction. What do you want to do? And the Florida League of Cities then will support us in.
Yeah, they're asking us to do their job. That's why we joined that group. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the League of Cities.
Don't shoot the messenger, Greg.
I'm not. I'm just making comment.
So what do we want to do?
I don't think anything local bill we present will have a chance of even getting past committee.
I think we could at least check with our representatives and see if they would have any interest in supporting it. I think that's, a first step. I mean, if they said, hey, that's a dead topic, I can't support that, or, they won't go anywhere.
It'd never get out of committee. I mean, go talk to Mayfield and see what she thinks.
I'd at least check her up and
I think it's a dead issue for us.
Well, who should do that? I'm probably not the strongest one to do that. I mean, does someone want to contact Representative May? I will do it if delegated, but I guess I'm delegated.
I have one more meeting, so don't look over here.
All right. That concludes the matters I have, so we'll move on to Vice Mayor Kramer.
Well, I've got a bunch of things. I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. I did spend all last weekend with a couple of boys in a boat with the lines to the lagoon. Definitely want to impress upon the public that these are the kind of fishing tournaments we like to see, where we catch the fish, we measure the fish, we take pictures, and then we release the fish. We had an awful lot of fun, and I would encourage people the next time it comes around to get your kids involved and help save the lagoon.
Yeah, my grandson came in second.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Which category?
I don't know which one. He just showed me a certificate, second place.
That's pretty cool. That we had actually had a little girl that got the second biggest redfish of the tournament.
Oh yeah,
it was quite exciting. Everybody had a little bit of everything there. It was great.
Yeah, great. Yeah, he had a good time.
Well, the boys had a good time. I was carting them around all over the place, and they enjoyed it, having Dad be their guide for a day. Additionally, the art club did a fundraiser out at Spring Hill Suites, and they raised about $2,000 for the middle school clubs, and really want to say thank you for having that. It was called Artini, and was quite a busy event. With that, I'll go ahead and pass it on.
Ms. Stern.
Well, I think I covered the FMPA board meeting earlier when we were talking about the electric issue and them raising the rates for the Stanton 1 and Stanton 2 projects will be increasing once again for 14-15 in the amounts of 20 to 26%. The Taylor swap issue, we're looking at a $100 million liability to terminate these swaps. They're targeting now no later than June 2015. Vero's share impact on this would be somewhere around $3 to $4 million. And just wanted to remind everybody about upcoming events. There's a Walk a Mile in Her Shoes at Indian River Mall at 10:30 to help stop domestic violence. Please come out there and join me cheering on my heroes that are willing to go out there and walk in these red hills to raise awareness of domestic violence. And we also have Halloween parades Saturday. Line up at the Heritage at 9:30 with the parade at 10 o'clock in downtown 14th Avenue. And for Friday the 31st, spend your Halloween down in Main Street. They are going to have the Land Sharks there with music. It's our 20 years celebrating Main Street festivals, and there'll be a costume contest. So,
Ms. Grave?
I just wanted to say thank you to our Supervisor of Elections, Leslie Swan. I voted early today. I was in and out in 5 minutes. It runs through the November 1st, so taking advantage of this great opportunity. And they're doing a wonderful job at the Maine County Library. You can also go to the Supervisor of Elections office.
I move we adjourn.
Well, one last thing. Jake Owens is here on Saturday the 25th. It's almost completely sold out. I did manage to get my granddaughter a ticket so she can be right there with Jake Owens, so she's very excited.
I'm sure she's thrilled. Boy, you really got some points there.
Yeah. Anyway, we are adjourned.
Great.